Hi everyone, this is an Amalgia video for Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Nintendo Switch, and today we're going to be talking about how to get a 5-star town rating. The 5-star town rating is the equivalent of a perfect town in previous Animal Crossing games, and fortunately it's easier to obtain in this game than it has been in the past. While New Horizons does have some complex calculations that can make the whole process seem overwhelming, I'll discuss those a little bit, but then I'll break it down in simple terms so that you can have an easier time of going about it. There are two main rewards from getting a 5-star town ranking. The first is the most obvious, and it's the golden watering can. The reason the golden watering can is an obvious reward is because once you reach 5-star town ranking, Isabelle will send the DIY directly to your phone. If you're standing in the middle of a row of flowers, an iron watering can water 3 flowers adjacent to you, including the one you're standing on, and then 3 flowers in front of you. A gold watering can do the same, but it adds an additional row of 3 in front, so it can water a total of 9 flowers in a single use. A gold watering can costs a normal watering can made of iron and 1 gold in order to make. Contrary to some rumors, golden tools do still break, but it takes more uses in order to break them. The second reward you get from having a perfect town is less intuitive. It's a flower called the Jacob's Ladder, or in this game, it's called Lily of the Valley. I still like to call the flower the Jacob's Ladder because its name is actually a bit deceptive, as it's not a lily in the traditional sense. Once you have a perfect town, a Jacob's Ladder will spawn in your town somewhere on a high cliff. And after you get the first one, an additional Jacob's Ladder will grow in your town every 7 days of active playtime. The Jacob's Ladder is an unusual flower because it's unpickable, indestructible, and it doesn't breed with any other flowers. A future update could change that, but for now the use of a Jacob Ladder is mostly subject to rumors and myths. It has been said in previous Animal Crossing games and in New Horizons that putting a Jacob's Ladder near flowers increases the rate at which they spawn hybrids. I've been testing out the Jacob's Ladder for about a week now, and if they do have a bonus for hybrid rate, it's so slight that it's barely noticeable. This is something I plan to test over a longer period of time and get more data for before I draw a conclusion. But anyway, let's move on to the criteria that you need in order to get a perfect town. If you open up the map application on your Nook phone, you'll notice that your map is divided into a number of squares that cover the entire town. The different squares are marked by white dotted lines around your map. These squares used to be a lot more significant, and in this game it's just mostly important to know that they're there so you can know whether a space is cluttered or not. Now let's talk about the major types of points you need in order for the game to give you a 5-star town ranking. The first major category of points are scenery points, and they're awarded based on the number of flowers and trees you have in your town, including bamboo. A fully grown tree is worth 1 scenery point, but what's interesting is that in this game, a fully grown flower is also worth 1 scenery point. So it's actually far more effective to plant a lot of flowers than it is to plant a lot of trees. Trees should always have 1 full square space around them open in order to have correct tree spacing. And the amount of trees you have in your town caps at 190 points. You need to have more than 450 scenery points in order to satisfy that category for having a 5-star town. This means that even if your town had 190 trees in it, you would still need to plant 240 flowers in order to get enough scenery points in order to have a 5-star town for that category. And you would need even more flowers if you had less trees, which is the case in my town, for example. What makes this process much easier in this game than previous Animal Crossing games is that the amount of scenery points you need doesn't seem to be broken down into the squares that the town is divided up into. It used to be the case that you needed to have a certain number of trees planted in a square and a certain number of flowers in that square. But my town in New Horizons has a few squares on the map that don't have any trees in them, and yet it's still a 5-star town. Because the scenery points seem to be calculated cumulatively between all squares in your town, it opens up a lot of freedom for how you can design your town and not have to worry about tree and flower placement in certain areas. The next major category of points you need to know about for having a 5-star town ranking are development points. Development points are earned in a number of different ways. They're earned by putting down fencing, DIY furnishings in your town, non-DIY furnishings in your town, and building structures like the upgraded Nook's Cranny, the museum, and bridges and inclines. In New Horizons, you need to have over 665 development points in order to be able to get a 5-star town ranking. And compared to the difficulty of obtaining the scenery points you need in this game to have a perfect town, it's far more difficult to obtain the 665 development points. First, let's go over the more straightforward way to get development points. Having the Nook's Cranny built, having the museum built, and having Able Sisters built are each worth 15 development points, which is a total of 45. Additionally, your town can have up to 8 bridges and 8 inclines built, and each of those is worth another 15 development points. This means that if you have the museum, Able Sisters, and Nook's Cranny, you get 45 points. And if you have 8 bridges, you get another 120 points. And if you have 8 inclines, another 120 points, for a total of 285 development points. At this point, it doesn't seem that the more expensive bridges and inclines provide more development points, which is good if you're trying to save money. As you may have guessed, having all of these structures built and having the 285 development points that would provide is still nowhere near the 665 total you need in order to have a 5-star town. This is where DIY furnishings and furniture you buy from Nooks come in handy. The actual calculations of how furnishings and DIY furnishings work in your town toward your development score is actually pretty complicated. So what I'm going to do is just tell you what to aim for so that you can maximize these categories. Not only do you want to have a lot of regular furniture and DIY furniture in your town, but you want to make sure that in a square on your map you have over 10 different types of each. In fact, because of the way the different types of furniture bonus multiplies, that's actually going to be the biggest way you get points. Another key point is that without taking into account the different types bonus for furniture, 5 pieces of fencing equal 1 piece of furniture roughly. Having different types of fencing doesn't seem to give an increased bonus like it does with the furniture. Remember that DIY furnishings like wells, the brick oven, and other things that are meant to be outside give additional point bonuses for being placed outdoors. Also, any furnishings placed that are worth between 2,000 and 20,000 bells give an additional point, and any furnishings placed that are worth over 20,000 bells give an additional 2 points per furnishing. Also, when you're placing different furnishings, this is one of the few times where having the lines on the map in your mind will help you out, because having 10 different types of furnishings in different squares on the map seems to give an increased bonus. So now let's talk about the easiest ways to get this accomplished. Make sure that you build the museum, Nook's Cranny, and Able Sisters. Then build as many inclines and bridges as you need. While it's good to keep the expensive item bonus for placing things outdoors in mind, the real thing you're going to want to focus on is making as many different types of outdoor type DIY furniture as you can. Campfires, swinging benches, the stone table, the iron garden tables, the water pumps, anything like that that you think should be outside, focus on those. Then, once you have the items, pick certain squares on the map and then put at least 10 different types in each square before moving on to another square of your map. Now let me give you a quick tip that may help you not only with furniture placement, but also to help you place furnishings without impacting the overall look of your town. If you notice on the north edge of the map, there are still the squares, but they cover only these rock spaces that are near like the secret beach on the northern end of town. Because so many of the spaces in those squares are water, you can actually load up those rock formations with furnishing items without impacting your town and still get the bonuses. The other nice thing is that if the northern end of your town is elevated, those furnishings that you put back there can barely even be seen. It's hard to see from the video, but it's not just the brick oven, the well, and the campfires. There's also small piles of different types of leaves, yellow, green, and brown, behind the cliff. It's a way to pump up your development score by using squares on the map that would normally be useless and give you more freedom of choice for the other squares that are more critical to your town's design. Remember that you can check on the development of your island in real time by going to the Resident Services building, talking to Isabel, and clicking on Let's Talk About Island Evaluations. If you're still under a 5-star town rating, she'll give you a helpful hint usually. It'll be something along the lines of, I think you should place more fencing, or we need more trees, we need more flowers, or maybe you should decorate the island, which means you need more furnishings. Keep in mind though that you should only attempt this if you're past the point where KK Slider has already played his concert in town, because you need at least 8 residents in town in order to get accurate evaluations over 1 star. If you have less than 8 residents in town, you will always get a 1-star rating regardless of what your island's progress is. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can't completely jam-pack a square on the map, because if you do, if 45 out of 64 tiles in a square have things on them, then it's considered cluttered by the game and it'll impact your score negatively. Remember to also make sure that there are no weeds on the ground and that you aren't placing small objects on the ground, because while items like tree branches and other things that occur on the ground naturally don't count, if you leave a bunch of small items on the ground, if you have over 15, it will also impact your score negatively. Lastly, I don't find the nature points in this game too hard to get. I mean, it should be the development points that are your real concern that are keeping you from getting the 5-town star rating, but I'll give some quick tips on the nature points just in case you need them. The most important thing is plant a lot of flowers. It's pretty simple to do. Make sure they're fully grown. It's something you should probably be doing anyway in trying to get hybrid flowers. So set up a number of different hybrid flower operations around your town and then just know that you're getting a lot of points for doing it. Each fully grown flower is 1 point, and they don't need to be spaced apart from one another like trees do, so they're a really good way to boost up your nature points. My other tip for nature points is that your town is surrounded by beaches, so don't waste that space and make sure you plant a lot of palm trees. I'm not talking about overcrowding your beaches or anything, but you have a lot of space and you can make up a lot of trees by using those lengths. It'll also give you a lot of freedom for how you actually want to space your trees within your town, so it's worthwhile to do it. Remember that the biggest hurdle for getting a perfect town is making sure you have enough DIY furnishings to put outdoors in order to get to the 665 point development score threshold. If you're low on DIYs and you need more, there's a few things that you can do in order to get them. A bottle with a random DIY will wash up on your beach every day, so if you're not already keeping an eye out for them, make sure you do that. Also, sometimes when you check on your villagers in their homes, they'll be working at their workbench. If you talk to them, they'll give you a DIY that they're working on so that you can use it too. Another way to get more DIYs is to use Nook Miles tickets, because those islands have a chance that there might be a bottle on the beach that would have a DIY in it for you to use. But probably the best way to accumulate a lot of DIY furniture that you may not already have is to talk to your friends who are playing the game, open up your DIY lists on your phones, and then just compare. And then from there, just figure out, what you would need to trade with your friends in order for them to have more and for you to have more. Anyway, these tips are the easiest way that I found in order to make a 5-star town. I really hope this helps you achieve a golden watering can and the Jacob's Ladder. Thanks for watching.